This is Technically Legal, a podcast about legal technology, innovation in the legal industry, and the impact tech is having on the law. I'm Chad Main, the founder of legal services company Percipient, and on today's show, I'm talking to Meredith Kildow. She holds the position of president at Consilio. Today's guest used to be a numbers person, but maybe she actually didn't like the numbers. Meredith Kildow started her career in finance, but her focus was always on the people, the clients, the doing of the work, and not just spreadsheets. This focus led her on a path from traditional finance into strategy and operations, and eventually into building a revenue engine for one of the largest players in the legal world. Today, she's president of Consilio, and in that role, she oversees both the delivery and the revenue sides of the company. And as we all know, legal is an industry always struggling with efficiency. But she's going to explain that legal and efficiency don't have to be mutually exclusive. She's going to tell us that the best way to improve efficiency and grow a business is simply to listen to the client. But underlying all this is something we all can't get away from and we hear about every minute of every day almost, and that's AI. In this current AI world, Meredith's going to tell us how she sees companies every day under enormous pressure to show ROI from the new technology. But she's also going to tell us what clients are actually using and how Consilio is helping its clients to fight the fear of being left behind by creating AI literacy with collaboration with clients through their innovation labs. So without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Meredith Kildow.
I was always referred to as a very non-traditional finance person.
Why so?
Much more sort of people-focused and always liked being client facing and, I guess at the end didn't even really love sort of spreadsheets and all that. So what I learned is that was really operations. And so sort of moved into strategy and operations, to which when I was at Hitachi Consulting, sort of ran operations there. And under me was revenue operations, although not, my sole focus. And so when the opportunity from Here on Legal to come and sort of build a revenue organization under the then CRO was sort of a fun way to leverage some of the things that I had done, but in sort of this entrepreneurial way. We were building something from very little and took that opportunity, and that morphed over time into, Consilio buying us as a carve out in 2016. And then once at Consilio, I became the chief revenue officer for, many years before adding sort of the delivery and operations side back in about 2 years ago now. So has been a journey for sure.
So you're not a bean counter, you're a doer, is what you're saying. Not loving spreadsheets is probably not conducive to a real long career in finance. So
Yeah, well, now I'm really helpless in them also.
hey, we got AI. AI fixes all that. So yeah. When you went to Huron, what was your role at that point when you first started?
So I headed up revenue operation.
Explain that, chief revenue officer, revenue operations. I mean, I think generally people think it's the same, but I think companies have different definitions for that. How do you explain it, being in a couple different companies now?
When I came into Huron, like I said, we did not really have an established sales organization or revenue organization. So it was really about, establishing everything ground up, right? Like we needed a CRM system. So the implementation of that, we needed playbooks, we needed buyer profile, like all of the sort of systematized things that you put in place to build a sales organization around, compensation plans and all the modeling that goes into that. So helped the then CRO build all of those things out and just grow the org, right? So hiring and territory design and, all of the things that go into sort of revenue organization, which is what made it fun because you don't often get to build it from scratch. You're often like adopting other people's plans or strategies and trying to make them your own. And in this case, we really got to do it ground up, which was fun. That, has quickly morphed since being in Consilio because we're highly acquisitive. A lot of, my job once I moved into the chief revenue officer role was around integration, acquisition, the sort of cycle of that. And, integrations are really challenging. And I always say the revenue side of an org is first in for an integration, but also first out. Like we got to be done with it before most of the rest of the organization starts. So, we got pretty good at that and have done a lot of it over the last, 10 years or so.
So now your title's president, though. You're the president at Consilio. Tell me about a day in the life now. How does that differ from it did 2, 3 years ago before you became president?
The biggest change is the obvious one, which is that I, also now look after all of operations and delivery. And, I think I still love being with clients. I still spend a lot of time doing that, but I spend sort of days differently depending on, where I think the value is the greatest, for my time spent. I also lead our Lawyers on Demand. We'll have somebody who leads that under me that comes under my purview as well as our legal transformation services business. And so thinking about, you know, I still wake up every day thinking about how are we going to grow? How are we going to do that in the most efficient way possible? How are we going to make sure we're taking care of all of our people? And, first and foremost, how do we continue to make our clients really happy? So in that way, I'm not sure it's changed that much. I definitely have added since, adding delivery, I've added a lot on the efficiency front. I think when I was, 100% sort of revenue focused, the growth piece was outsized. And now obviously I spend a lot of time just thinking about how can we deliver the best client experience while doing it in a way that creates efficiency within, our organization. The other thing is we are a lot more global than we were.
What is the head count now?
So corporate headcount is, probably 2,500 globally. Obviously, we have a large contingent workforce. We are a really large managed review provider. And while they are contingent, they work in large part full-time
Right.
for us also, which adds, a few thousand people. But
So I want to go back to the delivery piece because you come from sales, you're driving really revenue, like revenue. And a lot of times the salespeople, while often are the ones interfacing with the client, a lot of times the client will come to them if they have issues. Tell me how you work that in. How does someone coming from a revenue background actually help improve the delivery, knowing that, you got the project managers, the people like, the legal technicians and stuff doing some of the work and pushing the buttons. How does someone from a revenue background come in to improve delivery?
I always think of myself when I was in a revenue role as a very operational revenue leader. And so I think I draw back to sort of the operational part of me. But, the reality is everything we do, we really try to listen to the clients. And that is the North Star, or sort of the guiding principle for us in what products are we developing? Where are we moving from a forward perspective? But also in how we deliver the work. And obviously, and this, really well, is that's not always the same answer, right?
Right.
Like different clients and different verticals or, law firms or corporate in-house might think something is different that's better. And so understanding the nuance of that, helping the teams craft, bespoke and custom delivery is part of, I view, the job. But at the same time, that is also how we grow the revenue in the business. And so those two things, I sort of believe, don't have to be at odds.
Well, and I think too is, the customer has a relationship with probably a tight relationship with the revenue person, the salesperson, and they might be more apt to be more honest about the service delivery or whatever and improvements that, working day to day with the project managers. Man, I tell them, right? So there's probably more insight.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say, I think our clients, there are, beloved project managers, review managers all over the organization. And I think one of the things about bringing these two parts of the org under me that was important was that we collaborate as teams, because I think often the best client delivery is when all of those people are aligned, right? Everybody touching the business understands what the client wants,
Right.
understands what the best outcome looks like. So I actually think it was intentional in that way.
We need to do more with less. That is the key takeaway nowadays from almost every survey of in-house counsel. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if you actually could do more for less? By combining legal expertise and technology, Percipient enables legal teams to get more work done for less. Buried in contracts and sales is frustrated with turnaround time? We can help with that. Did you just get hit with a subpoena and reviewing 100,000 documents and files will tax your resources or cost you a small fortune in billable hours? We can help there too. Our team of legal professionals leverage tech and project management principles with the right amount of human oversight to deliver precise, efficient, and cost-effective legal solutions. Whether it's legal operations and contract management support, subpoena compliance, or document review, Percipient is your partner in really doing more for less. Percipient. Legal services powered by technology.
Let's talk about delivery because, the elephant, not even in the room, the elephant in the world right now is AI. And what are you seeing early days? People, I think there's a lot of innovation theater. People talk about it's going to do this, going to do that. But what are you really seeing, you internally, what you guys are doing, but clients, how is it really actually being used today? Like, what are some things that jump out at you?
So I think, our clients really view it as both a problem and a solution, right? And are looking for folks like us to really help them navigate, which feels like a very disparate and challenging ecosystem around AI right now. We laugh that everywhere we go is like an AI flea market, right?
Right.
There's just like all these companies, all these solutions, all these things. But how you can get to a workflow that makes sense, that you're actually seeing efficiency from it. And at the same time, our clients have a lot of pressure, I think, coming from their own leadership to show ROI and efficiency through AI usage, right? There's a lot of just big pressure generally.
Is the pressure, could be one of three things, right? Is the pressure, you got to use AI, everybody's using AI, we're going to get left behind? Or is the pressure, hey, you got to use AI, you are using AI, what's the ROI? Like, what's the return on investment? Are you really seeing value? Is that, what is the pressure you're seeing?
I think there's some of that. I also think, if you look at, there probably isn't a large corporation in the world right now that is not looking to reduce costs in some way. And AI feels like one of those big triggers, right? Like, oh, if we adopt AI in XYZ, we will see enough ROI and efficiency to reduce cost, right? And legal departments everywhere, being a cost center, I think feel that pressure. They are always looking for ways to continue to manage risk, but look across what they're delivering and say, how could we do this, better or in a more efficient or more optimized way? And AI feels like a good tool potentially to do those things. I think you see it a lot like in the contract side of business, right? There's a lot of companies in that space, a lot of solutions. I think a lot of big corporations have adopted AI. That seems like one of the first in areas. But I think, we see it a lot in litigation teams now looking across saying, what is the potential for, as you put, some good ROI around that? We now have 5 or 6 pretty robust AI tools within our ecosystem, all at the response of where clients were pushing us.
What is that entry point? What is one of the first things you remember seeing and the customer requested, and you actually got it, spun it up, and it was actually, you had AI involved?
Yeah, interestingly, where we get the most sort of actual projects or people utilizing it does, still live in the review
Right.
space. Where we get the most inquiries and where people want to talk about it the most is upstream of that in sort of an investigations. Like, what can I learn about all this data all the way up here first? And how can I really utilize that to both, manage these enormous amounts of data, move less of that data downstream, and what can we gain insights on? This sort of fact finding protocol feels like where we are getting the most conversations around.
Right. It makes sense. Yeah, because as soon as that's tackled, that changes the ball game, right?
Right.
Where you had 1,000,000 documents, might have, 10,000. Like, it's completely changes the ball game. I know a lot of the people you deal with are legal ops people because a lot of times they're running this stuff. Do you sense a fear within the legal ops community that AI's, like other jobs, going to take their job? Do you sense that fear? Because personally, I don't see how it could, because I see how it augments it. But legal ops is an analytic, right? It's as AIs too, but like you got to be in there. There's just too many moving pieces, including the human element.
Yeah. Other than sort of the general uncertainty that I think just humans feel of how is it all going to manifest itself into, our everydays. No, I don't think it's going to take
I don't think it
jobs
can.
of
The legal
legal
ops
ops
people,
people.
no.
I do think that legal ops teams are going to have to incorporate it into how they work, right? And I think that there's the potential to be more effective and more efficient and to take a lot of the more low risk, the higher volume, the tasks throughout legal departments that are ripe for this kind of disruption and really embrace that. I think that the teams that resist that part maybe are the ones that are more fearful for it if it feels, like something they can't imagine incorporating. But most of the legal ops leaders that we work with are pretty excited, I think, about.
Yeah, it seems like the people that be resistant to it wouldn't be necessarily be legal ops people because they're all about efficiency and doing stuff with as few people as possible, as most effectively as possible. Be resistance probably the higher ups, you know?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to transform these, in-house teams is like pretty exciting to a lot of these folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of segueing from that, I read a couple articles you wrote. You talk about AI literacy. And I want to explain what you mean by that. But then I think this is an article, maybe it was a post you had, or is it an article you said there's a skills gap within AI. A survey of 129 legal professionals, only 10% reported that their teams are very trained on generative AI. What are you seeing out there, the training that has worked? Or if you're having a beer with a legal ops professional right now and they're asking, hey, Meredith, what can I do to kind of future proof myself? What are you telling them? How do you become AI literate?
It's interesting. So we just did our like 2026 global survey, and I think it was, more than 600 of our clients, both corporations and law firms, sort of globally. So from that 10% full deployment of AI stat from last year, we're seeing that now in this result up north of 30%. So you are seeing sort of AI adoption. When you talk about AI literacy, I mean, I think that this is one of the areas that like we as Consilio feel like we have a real opportunity to add value to our clients in. I think, what we are finding in all of the sort of POCs and projects that we've done over the last, year or so is that the AI, particularly in our space, is so much more effective when there are, experts and it's sort of guided by people who not only understand the technology and the best way to make the AI work, but also understand, whether it's protocols or, the merits of a matter or sort of understand the work itself. And so the marriage of those two things, I think we and others like us can add a lot to this idea of AI literacy because it's not just around the technology or the software, right? It's also about the work itself and bringing those two things together.
How are you doing that? How are you bringing, obviously, you guys are AI literate. You got to be, or, you could have left in the dust, right? So, how are you imparting what you've learned to your customers, to your law firms, to your in-house legal departments, so they become more AI literate? You said you add value. I think was the term you can add value for this AI literacy. How are you doing that?
So internally, obviously this has been a huge initiative for us and continues to be, and it's all across the teams. So we have built and continue to build a large population of prompt engineers and AI specialists and people who really understand, how to curate the experience that our clients are having and what are the needs. We have a rapid prototype team in technology that literally takes every idea and sees if we can create a product out of that and how can we, deploy that back into the organization into something that clients have asked us for or they've told us that there's a real need for. And then, from a client perspective, we do lots of sort of industry stuff, whether that's, round tables, whether that's clients that are actually fairly sophisticated in terms of their knowledge. But, like if they are in a big organization, being able to try things out can be incredibly challenging, right? So we built like a year ago, or maybe 18 months ago at this point, we built an innovation lab for our most strategic corporate clients where they get to help us choose things that they are interested in looking at. We help them through a sandbox environment, test them out, all within sort of the secure environment that they already trust Consilio for. And that has led to a lot of collaboration and conversation around things that we then say, okay, so that's a really interesting use case that you all have told us is important to you. We don't see like the right actual solution out there in the market. We're going to take that in, build that. You're going to help us, work with that, give us insight into that. So that actually organically has turned into a very collaborative way that I would say we are informing each other, creating a lot of, literacy in that way together around, which has morphed into we're now launching that for our law firm clients also.
What's the interplay between, I think you call it the innovation lab and the rapid deployment team? What's the interplay there?
So the innovation lab is a, client group, and we look at both things that we could build internally, but also third party. The rapid prototype team is really the tip of the spear for our technology organization. So they are building things to a prototype spec that, if viable, then get passed into our, regular product organization.
So are those ideas that the rapid deployment team handling, are they coming internally from Consilio employees? Or are they coming from clients too? Or the ones that clients go to the innovation lab? Is that the demarcation?
They're coming from both channels. And I think, there's a sort of gating at the front of that of like, do we think this is a viable use case? Do we think we want to, build this? But know that it can be from both. We have sort of split external and internal initiatives. So we think about those in two different channels. We are doing lots of things internally to try to make our work more efficient. And whether that, is in delivery, but also in finance or HR or all of our sort of like internal departments. And those two channels we do think of a little differently. We try to keep sort of commercial market facing things running from clients' ideas. They push us always to develop what they're asking for.
You mentioned you have several AI tools that Consilio actually offers to their clients. I know Aurora is a big one. And I just saw that you guys are doing a deal with Reveal. I saw that, I think, just today before I hopped on. Explain what they are. Like, what are the tools that are available to Consilio customers that involve AI?
So within Aurora, because Aurora for us is our digital enterprise
Okay,
platform.
it's the
So
umbrella.
yes, it's how all clients, will interact with us. It has a couple of really like sort of key points for us, which lead into this idea of AI, but it has its rich sort of data insights and dashboarding component. And then it has a sort of flexible data repository, which we call ECI, so early case intelligence. And that is powered by all of our set of AI tools. But really, it's built on this idea that we don't know what is going to happen with AI, right? And we don't feel like anybody does. And so that the best way that we can offer our clients the best outcome is to offer freedom, like choice within that. So everything that we've built has been built so that they can utilize multiple tool sets. They can bring in, different review platforms. Like to be able to utilize a full suite of what we don't even know will exist yet. And that also means for us, we did not, solely go into one large language model. Like we are able to tap into different models because we found that depending on what the use case is, different models behave differently and have better outcomes. So within the AI tool set itself, which, is powering Aurora, but we also offer certain things today, like, in RHEL Server, a suite around AI Investigate, which I mentioned, sort of that upstream, more fact finding. We also have guided AI review, which is really around relevance. We have PrivGen, which is around Priv identification. We have PrivLog descriptions is another place that we've found AI to have really good outcomes for us. And then we also have our suite within TrueLaw, which is an acquisition we did about 6 months ago, which has two products, one around narratives and one around ELM. And that is the part of our suite that actually, is deployed wherever. It's a true SaaS model today.
You mentioned a few things there, like Privlog creation, review tools and stuff. What distinguishes those from what's already built into, say, a relativity, say a reveal, say an Everlaw? What's the distinguishing factor? Like, what does Consilio's tools have that the software may not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that we noticed about the platform, a relativity, a reveal, or an Everlaw, right? They have their own AI that's specific in their software. And in some cases, they are encouraging to not use anything else, right? Like that is your choice in that software. I think where we really have landed just from a sort of higher level methodology is that we wanted to provide choice to the clients around what every use case was not the same. Every outcome that they were looking for was not the same. So again, I mentioned we built them. I would say there's two major differences. We built them to be flexible. And then the other thing is that our tool set, everything, the investigations, the guided review, the PrivGen, the Priv, all of that happens within our secure environment, so private cloud environment. We harness sort of the power of large language models, but we do that in a much more controlled private cloud environment. And for some of our clients, that was really important. They did not want to push stuff up to the public cloud, if things were utilizing OpenAI or, other big cloud models. And then the other piece of that is we think it allows us to control for cost. I think we see a movement with the software vendors today that they're figuring out that cost was an obstacle for folks. And I think you see them changing pricing models. I think we saw that too. And we said, how do we sort of control this for our clients? How can we power all the offerings that we have for them in a way that is not going to be so, cost prohibitive?
Within organizations, who are you seeing that are kind of taking the charge and saying, "Hey, I like this AI idea," and kind of pushing it through? Because you enterprise clients, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You got to convince a lot of people. Who do you see mainly driving it? Is it legal ops? Is it the CTO? Like, who is it?
I think it varies organization to organization, but I do think generally this kind of adoption is coming all the way from the top in these organizations. I was at a client summit a few months ago where it was very clear that every department within the organization had a directive around this, right? I think, we've even seen cases at clients that they have a specific budget that has been allocated, around AI usage. And even if they have a need or a use case for something, if it does not harness some sort of AI technology or software, they cannot utilize that budget for it. So I do think organizations broadly have, a lot of directives around this. And then we've really seen both on the law firm side and the corporate side, I think there's a real genuine curiosity. And as long as there's the ability for folks to try it, I mean, that has been my biggest takeaway from the last, sort of 9 to 12 months is that people, and I don't think this is shocking to anyone in the legal community, but like people want to know, how is this going to impact the matter? What is the change going to look like? But I think it's a way for them to really hands-on understand the implications of using it in, their projects, their matters. And that was the genesis, by the way, for the innovation lab, right? We embrace our own technologies, but we also embrace all these emerging technologies that are out there. We want the best outcome for the client, regardless of, where that comes from. So whether that's giving them that space in the innovation lab to sort of create and test, or really, all the hundreds of POCs that we've done with clients. We even have clients that we're co-developing products with, around very specific use cases for like, shared strategic clients or things like that. So I think, we view it like I talk about the innovation lab, but a big lab. Like everyone wants to see how it can impact. And I think we feel very fortunate that we have sort of the scale to be able to provide that to clients, and we continue to partner with them on that.
All right, close it out. Crystal ball. 5 years from now, what do you think is going to be different?
Oh my gosh. I mean, everything. I don't know. I think specific to what we do, I think the tendency is to think, I hear people all the time say TAR was going to change everything.
We should TART, technology assisted review, like the first type of AI that was used in document review.
That's right. Like, so you hear people say that all the time, right? I think that the adoption and the speed to adoption that we're seeing with AI feels very different. So I do think that we're going to see some pretty tangible changes. But, the one thing I would say in crystal ball is that I think we don't even know what those changes will really look like yet. And I feel like, month to month, it feels rapidly changing.
I'm with you. It's a loaded question. No one knows. No one knows.
No one knows.
Meredith, appreciate your time. If people want to get a hold of you or learn more about Consilio, services you guys offer, where do you want to send them?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I answer and I talk to people. I'm happy to engage with anyone there. And obviously, I'm at Consilio, Kildow at consilio.com. Happy to engage and strike up a conversation.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode. As always, we really appreciate you listening. If you want to subscribe, you can find us on most major podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, etc. Also, if you like us enough, I hope you leave us a favorable review. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, this has been Technically Legal.